Welcome to STS Interviews. I'm Lukas Siska here with Sam McKenzie. We have an awesome opportunity here, guys, to talk to sports scientist, expert nutritionist Sam McKenzie, who also is a triathlete. He's done the Ironman, he's done various different triathlons, so we have a real good chance to get the inside scoop on what he does nutritionally during the Ironman itself. So let's pick his brain a bit. Thank you for being here, Sam.
Cheers, buddy.
All right. Sam, I think the big question I always get is, what in the world do you do during the Ironman itself? What did you do specifically? What did you eat for breakfast that morning? And what did you do during the race, nutritionally?
Okay, so this was, despite my knowledge, trial and error, as it will be for all the viewers. So it's important that they get to know that. The morning of the Ironman, I had around 150 grams of carbs. That came from porridge oats, a bagel, orange juice, some honey. Really maximising that carbohydrate intake, because one of the biggest predictors of how you're going to do is how much carbohydrate you start within the system.
Okay.
Then it's up to your race protocol to make sure that you're keeping it topped up.
Right. Okay. So we see what you had for breakfast. How long before the race did you have that breakfast?
2 hours.
2 hours before.
Yeah, because it's very individual. Some of the people that I've trained with can actually eat quite a big meal like 5 minutes before they go out.
Yeah.
Which to me is crazy, but it just goes to show the variability you get.
No, I couldn't do that. I have to digest that.
I couldn't either, so that would knock me sick. But yeah, for me, 2 hours before.
Okay. What about the night before? What did you have for dinner?
Yeah, so the night before, if you read the various triathlon magazines and things like that, there's lots of different opinion, but from an evidence-based one of what the science says, you can look at a carb loading protocol. That the old protocol many years ago used to be that you deplete yourself of carbohydrate through really heavy exercise, and then you start getting it back in again. Nowadays, it's better to elevate your carb intake whilst lowering your exercise volume, so then your carbohydrate stores fill up. 3-4 days before the Ironman, I'd lowered the exercise volume, up the carbs, and it was probably something around the region of 9 to 10 grams per kilogram. So I was having about 700 grams of carbs, a couple of days before the Ironman.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's get specific. What did you have for dinner that night? Do you remember?
Dinner that night, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So it will have been, concentrating on the high carbohydrate foods but low fibre. Despite what the regular health advice would be, which by the way I still agree with, but before a triathlon it is a little bit different. So you'd be looking at like low residue food, so you're not leaving too much kind of residue in the gut. So believe it or not, white pasta, white rice, rather than the brown alternatives, because to lower the risk of having stomach issues during the Ironman or any endurance event, it's good to sometimes lower the fibre, because it lowers the risk of GI issues or tummy trouble.
Guys, this is huge information, because if you have too much fibre, only place you're going to be running during that Ironman is the toilet. So that is some really good insight for newbies. Yes, fibrous foods are healthy, but they're not exactly the best before a big race. Okay, so cool stuff. Okay, so now it's race time. We got out of the water. You're on the bike. What have you done now?
So just going to add in there, just before 20 minutes before I actually started the swim, I'd have a small amount of carbohydrate. That might be a gel or a drink.
Okay.
That's just to keep the carbohydrate levels topped up. Then come out of the water, I'd then be straight onto some fuel as soon as I'm on the bike. Because one of the most important things that I could probably say to your viewers is that it's really important that rather than letting that fuel needle go down before you top it up, it's better to keep it topped up.
Right on.
Because if your tummy doesn't receive some fuel, or your gut doesn't receive some fuel, it will start to become less responsive to fuel that you give it later on. So then you might not take it on board, and you can risk that well-known BONK occurring, which that can be, for many cases, the point of no return.
We don't want that BONK. We've all been there.
Yeah.
Okay. So 20 minutes before, a bit of a gel. Good advice there.
Yeah.
All right.
So 20 minutes before, a bit of a gel. As soon as you come off out of the water and you're on the bike, it's important to be taking fuel on. And at any point you are not taking fuel on for that immediate time. So a lot of people think that as soon as you put the energy in, that it's in. Any time that you're taking fuel, it's an investment for probably 10 miles down the road later on when it's actually going to get into your system. So whilst you might feel fine at that moment, remember the investment process for keeping your fuel in for later on when it's going to count. And you've got to keep that, especially for something, you know, as much of a distance as the Ironman. You've got to be thinking with that mindset all the way through, because if you hit a point that you're not fueling adequately and you're not thinking, you know, ahead, that might cause you problems.
Yeah, just a little bit. You could die.
Well, maybe not that far, but where performance is concerned, you've got to be thinking that way to be getting the most bang for your buck. You know, people put a lot of training and a lot of sacrifice into these events, and as much as your training's at the core of your performance, so is your nutrition, and you've got to remember that.
Definitely.
So treat that as much as you with as much priority and sacrifice as you do with your training. Okay,
all right. So you got out of the water and you had what did you eat? What did you put in your body?
The bike, you know, the gels. I had some different carbohydrate chews. I had some rice cakes that Team Sky use. We used some peanut butter and jam sandwiches. We had a whole range of different types of fuel that we used throughout that, and I also used carbohydrate in my drinks and electrolytes as well.
Right. So, how many calories did you look to put in during that Ironman race?
Good question. So, around between 250 and 300 calories per hour that I was probably having.
Per hour.
Yeah. Which in carbohydrate, for me, and this does differ depending on the individual. For me, I was having about 60 grams of carbohydrate per hour. Trained on it, I got used to it, and I knew it worked for me. So I was leaving less down to chance on the day.
Yeah. And guys, I was watching Sam's Ironman, and I was there on the marathon, and I tell you what, he did look fresh for just being on the marathon of an Ironman. So he definitely knows what he's talking about. I would definitely pay attention to these numbers, because they will get you to the finish line, you know, at your best. Super interesting. I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, but as far as fluids go, I mean, can you give us a specific amount? I know it's individual according to sweat rate, but for you personally, how much fluids? How much did you have to drink on that Ironman race?
For me, it was, you know, during the year of training, I'd done a number of sweat rate tests, which for your viewers at home, if you want, we can set that as a task. I can send them the details of how they can record their own sweat rate test. That allows me to kind of calculate how much fluid I lose on a ride, and then I did that test in different weathers, so then I knew what the predicted weather would be for the Ironman as close as I could. The Core app helped me with that, and then for that day my fluid intake personally was around 500 ml per hour.
Okay.
So you don't need to drink all of that back in terms of whatever you lose, but you need to keep within ideally, you know, 2% of it, because if you let your hydration drop or your dehydration starts to occur, you will have to work harder to maintain the same intensity, because you won't have the same blood flow because of the lack of water, and many of your other bodily functions start to become affected.
Guys, that's a really interesting fact right there. People often wonder why, you know, what is the importance of hydration besides just obviously keeping you hydrated, but it can affect your performance when you're racing. So Sam, you just said that how much can it slow? It slows you down because the blood doesn't flow correctly? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, a number of different things are affected. Your heart rate, your blood flow, you know, your concentration, a lot of them which are all, you know, big predictors of performance. But, you know, don't forget that really, you know, how enduring and how much of a stress or stimulus that the Ironman can be on your body. So it all comes back to, you know, really respecting that nutrition and making sure you know your numbers, so to speak. And the sweat rate, people that I work with, their sweat rate can massively vary. Even if you're going out on a ride with a few different training partners in the same conditions, the sweat rates can be massively different. So one of the important messages that I give is to make sure you know what your sweat rate is. Do the test.
Do the test, and it's not a very complicated test, is it?
No, good point. Yeah, so it's not a case of visiting a lab or anything. You can do this from home. You just need you know, a set of scales, both, you know, to weigh yourself and to weigh your food. So some food weighing scales as well. You weigh the foods and the drinks that you're taking on your ride. you weigh them after, you weigh yourself after, and then you'll see what you lose in those conditions. And that'll give you an idea of what your fluid intake will be.
Pretty simple. So let's ask Sam. I know he's in a bit of a rush, but you were talking a little bit, Sam, about the advantages of fasting during training to kind of help boost performance. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so I think many of you as well versed or experienced in triathlon might have read this in some of the magazines, and it comes a lot of the work from Australia, from Louise Burke's lab, and also Dr. James Morton, who is the scientist at Team Sky. And what we know is that if you manipulate when you eat carbohydrate, either before, during, or after exercise, this can actually result in beneficial adaptations in your muscle, which will help translate into better performance. So what we mean by that in simple terms is that if you either fast before a session, or so this is not and, it's or you restrict carbohydrate during a session, or hold it back after a session, this results in unique changes in your muscle. It increases something called mitochondria, which they're like the powerhouses of a cell. And you can end up by fasting or reducing the carbohydrate, you can actually produce more of them mitochondria in your muscle, which could translate to better performance. Which, as opposed to what many people might be doing, they might be having carbohydrate for every session. And I'm certainly not saying never have carbohydrate. Yeah, if you want to have optimum performance, you ideally need to do both restricted carbohydrate sessions once or twice a week, and the rest of your sessions at a high intensity you may wish to do fed with carbohydrate.
Yeah, absolutely. Because and guys, definitely be careful when you're doing this, because it can affect recovery if you don't do it the right way. So we're just trying to give you a little insight to how, if you do it right, this can really be beneficial.
On one of the points with the fasted training, we call this the train low protocol, either fasted or carb restricted. You are meant to feel that those sessions will be harder, and that's when you start to appreciate the benefits carbohydrate has, because when you don't have carbohydrate, your legs feel heavier, you feel a little bit more sluggish. You are supposed to feel that way, because you've restricted the carbohydrate, but the benefits that it will have are quite well documented. But of course, remember also when to feed on sessions when you're going to have your carbohydrate too, because it will equal overall better performance.
Right. Yeah. I know personally, just thinking for myself, that I would probably do these fasted sessions. Just kind of, I used to like to do volume type cruisy runs before breakfast in the morning. So maybe 2 runs during the week where before breakfast you don't maybe have any food at all, just go do the run. Would that be probably the right thing to do, Sam? Yeah,
I think the easiest way to do it is fasted. There are other protocols that you can do. You could do 2 workouts in a day. One of them might be fed, the second one might then be carb restricted. The other way you can do it is you can sleep low, which you restrict carbohydrate before bed, you sleep with low carbohydrate availability, then you train the following day. So there's a few different ways you can do it. Fasted is probably the easiest.
Right.
And yeah, I agree with you on that. You ideally wouldn't do it any more than twice per week, and you can do it either on your kind of low intensity, high volume sessions, or you can do it on high intensity sessions. But you've got to know you will feel sluggish, you won't feel as fresh, but also just make sure that that's not taking the place of your total high intensity and total volume, so it has an effect on where you want to be getting PBs and Ks and things like that.
We just really touched on the really surface of that. Guys, if you have more questions about this, please send us an email message. We'll get Sam in here again and we'll talk more in depth about it. But Sam, again, I just thank you for taking the time out. We've got some good information from you here, and I hope we can get together in the future. So appreciate it, Sam.
Thank you.
All right, cheers. Take care, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed it. If you liked that video and are looking for some more serious insights into triathlon, all things triathlon, why not check out our website at www.siskatrainingsystems.com. There you can find all you need to know to maximize and unleash your potential. We got Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram as well. Why not check it out? All right, love ya.